ultimately. We don't know what anything is. We don't know where we are or what's happening ultimately. But we don't live in that ultimate world much because it's too much, really. I mean, we can, and in a way, that's the cost of admission for resting in being and resting in consciousness. Quite often, we'll rest in a very relaxed meditative space, but we still want to know where we are because we're afraid then we'll be like an Alzheimer's person or something. But an Alzheimer's person is still kind of grasping, that's their suffering, at some structure and trying to, but it doesn't quite work because their mind is not working. It's very different than, you could say, no mind of Zen. No mind, literally, I mean, resting in your Buddha nature in that sense, literally, there's no time. Time is gone because time is mind, and there's no structure to anything. So there isn't, you lose any remembering of where you are, but quite consciously, because you see that remembering of where you are and remembering what year it is and what day is a conceptual thing. It's just because other people said that's where you are. That's all. Like, the name of your town, the name of your street, the name of yourself, of your wife, of everyone you know, that's all just agreed upon. There isn't anything inherent that is nameable. In other words, it's just what is, and every name actually is an attempt, a fearful attempt at some level, to contain that unknowability, and also is a bit of a prison on each of the ones named, because you're far beyond any concept of what others think you are, and yet, in order to know what you are, you have to repeat back what others think you are, so you know who you are. It's very strange, the situation. So we really aren't anywhere. And there is no definition, time-wise, space-wise, knowledge-wise, about what we are that's actually the way it is. This is emptiness. And all language is based on associations that are assumed that people hold. But the more you intuit this, or the more you glimpse this, the more you see this, the more you realize that what freedom is to, there's a tent peg, I believe it's a tent peg, that was used in Central Asia that's known as a purba in Tibet. It's like a tent peg, right? You kind of put it in the ground and you say, all right, I'm in the middle of a void and I'm putting this here, and that's the north, and that's the south, and that's the west, and that's the east, and I'm naming it, and I'm calling in all the powers to meaning the disembodied powers, or you could say the gods and goddesses, not other human beings, to verify that with me. And I'm building a mandala. I'm building a world around me through that just claiming. And then your whole world can be aligned around that. In some way, ultimately, it's about framing it all. Otherwise, it's the confused quality of wanting to find a fixed point to align yourself to, as if one actually exists out there in a real way. And yet there's an intuition, as we become more and more experienced in state changes, that all fixed points are related to the state you're in. I don't mean Oregon, Washington, those states, although that's true too. But the idea that there's a fixed point that is not just a state is delusion, and it's the world in which the language that we speak is founded in. But it's all cheating, like it's like we just assume for the sake of the conversation that that New York is real, and we can draw a map now of the whole world because we know where New York is. And we can, you can just take a look at it and go, okay, if we know where this is, I think there's something called triangulating. You have to have like 3 points, and you could figure out the whole thing. You can map the whole thing out. But it's all just agreements is what it is. It's all conceptually made. And it's so tied up in what we think we are and who we think we are because of the nature of the thinking mind. And it's so useful. It's the price for sanity. I mean, you have to, if you're going to not be put away somewhere, you have to know these things. You have to speak this language. You have to act like it's real. And it will assist you. It's sort of, if you act like it's real, it will show you all the ways it's real because everybody around you is invested in making sure this is real. Like when I go to work tomorrow, I know just where it is. If I drive someplace, I know just where it is. And the reason I know where it is because everybody else knows where it is. It's not going to be somewhere else. Right? Does this make sense, Andrew?
No, perfect.
So speak up just a bit more.
It perfectly makes sense to me, but I don't mean perfect, but I do understand it. And I guess so let's just say
we've only just begun. This is good. This is just wanted to lay that out
okay,
first.
to say, and I'm just thinking of that because I practiced chud for years, and that idea of laying your stake in a scary place, another place that it's the most threatening, like a cremation ground. In other words, that's the same realization. I mean, in other words, you've created this structure, but in a, of safety, really.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
But in a place where it's from another perspective is very hostile.
Yeah, because actually the statement is it's delusion to think that there's a safer place than this. In other words, it's like saying the world is a cremation ground, so I have no problem hanging out here because you're going to take me someplace and act like it's not a cremation ground. I'm fine right here. Because the whole thing's a cremation ground, and you guys are pretending. I mean, that's the very tantric way of speaking, the fearlessness of hanging out in a cremation ground and doing your practice there and having a human skull as your bowl. And it's not just to shock, although that's part of the deal, because it's trying to shock people out of their fixed points of reference that are conceptual based on the society. And society is not a political entity. Political entities are built within this kind of mind net we're talking about. It's not like, oh, if we destroy that society, then we're free. No, it's that mind net of how I know what I am. It's based on these agreements. That's the prison. So, but anyway, having a skull, a human skull, I mean, it's basically saying, this is the way, this is what all your bowls are. I mean, in a big way, the physical reality is just talking, just physically what this is filled with death. I mean, everything's eating everything else, and everything will come to naught. I love the Mexican Day of the Dead stuff. I love it. It's so great where they're getting married, the skeletons getting married and riding bicycles and all this kind. I just love it. It just says it all. It's so right on. So alignment really is to your own choosing. So what is it that you choose to be aligned with? Alignment has to do with the 2 points of reference. So we were just speaking about the natural hierarchy in phenomenal world of Shakti. The natural hierarchy, and it is a natural hierarchy, is the sense of balance, or the sense of at homeness or satisfaction in peace and expansion. You could say the most expanded in the goddess in her form as Mahashakti, as full feeling and just present and peace. Now she, of course, that state, this is where it's the meeting of heaven and earth, you could say, or the meeting of, that's too metaphoric. How about the meeting of, it's really the meeting of Shiva and Shakti. It's the meeting of consciousness with states. You could say it's the side effect. Like consciousness itself, if attention is resting without any clinging whatsoever or any desire to be anything other than what is, things will, the phenomenality will naturally unfold so that the goddess is right there, so that the expansion happens. So there's a tricky thing of like, once we realize, oh, just by resting, just by non-desire, non-doing, just living, just being present to what is, then you start to feel bliss and expansion. You just read Taoism, like read the Tao Te Ching, things like that, where it's very, very clear that non-effort is what it's about. It doesn't mean that you don't do anything, but you do it without any investment. You simply do what you do. And then peace, the spirit of the valley descends. And the way it's described is the spirit of the valley gives life without end. This is the way, this is the Tao. So this a natural marriage between the fully expanded, the high purple, and the red, or the transcendent, between Shiva and Mahashakti. And the rest of Shakti, all the other states, you could say the dance of energy that is sometimes contracted and sometimes expanded, that also arises within that piece, or sometimes obscures that piece. But the kind of alignment that is most auspicious is the alignment of the energies of our lives to the naturally aware space that naturally, as a side effect, has this Mahashakti, this radiance. And then everything just naturally, that this is what to be aligned to.